I'm Friedrich from B2G Consulting. Today, we're going to talk about a very important topic, the impact of COVID-19 on the supply chains and how to mitigate the risk. We organized this webinar, I would say 3 or 4 weeks ago when the virus was not even a pandemic. And in a very short period of time, we moved from a kind of flu-like virus that most governments didn't take seriously to a global pandemic. And now we are talking about potentially the worst global recession ever. So I invited Mei Yee Pang from DHL Innovation Asia Pacific to have a discussion and to share views on this situation. So before we start, I'd like to remind you that we will have a 40 to 45 minute discussion followed by a 15-minute Q&A session where you can post your comments or questions, and I'll be pleased to ask those questions to our guest anytime soon. So Mei, welcome, first of all, and thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Friedrich. Happy to be here.
Thanks. So Mei, you've been in the supply chain field for quite a while now. You've been leading the consulting division of DHL here in Asia Pacific, and then you moved to lead the innovation division still at DHL. So of course everyone knows DHL. So can you introduce yourself and your company, and most probably what we least know about DHL?
Thank you, Friedrich, for us asking the question. Today, I will carry a few hats. I'm most recently the head of innovation for Asia Pacific, based out of Singapore. DHL has an innovation organization at a corporate center looking at identifying different trends that are important for the logistics industry, scouting startups and technologies that can apply to the logistics industry. And I have a team of 20 people in Singapore across data science, across project management and innovation workshop facilitation resources to really help our customers do such kind of innovation. Most recently, you mentioned that I was from DHL Consulting. Yes, I was there for the first 10 years of my career in DHL. I then moved on to lead the innovation role, and at the beginning of this month, actually, I've returned back to DHL Consulting, really bringing the knowledge that I've gained from the last few years in the innovation space to now help our customers in an advisory role to transform their digital supply chain. Okay. So a few words on consulting. We are across 4 offices in Asia. I cover everywhere from Middle East, Africa, all the way down south to the Australia, New Zealand, Oceania space. We focus really on serving our customers and looking at their supply chain needs. If you move across to the next page, I wanted to just really show you some of the lesser known bits of DHL. It's a brand that most people associate with logistics. Yes, that's true. Some of our clients, and I saw in the invitation list that there are some clients that I have signed up in this call. DHL offers a very broad scope of logistics services, from planning all the way to market last mile and return services. But behind that, it is being supported by different teams like mine at the Innovation Center and Consulting to help our customers transform their supply chain. We also have a division called Customer Solutions and Innovation, where a big part of what they do is really to account manage, and there we get access to key decision makers across Fortune 1000 companies to not only advise them, but also to learn from them on best practices that we can then apply across sectors.
Okay, interesting.
And today, I guess we talk about something that is very close to all of our minds, and affecting our personal lives. Right, and I'm by no means an expert in this space. I just get a lot of updates from my business and from our customers on various questions related to logistics impact. So today, I thought it could be a interesting sharing sessions and also hearing feedback from your participants on how they've been impacted by COVID in the local context.
Yes, that definitely. No one can say that they are expert in COVID-19. No one is, but in terms of crisis management, there's definitely some approaches which are better than, or more appropriate, I would say, than others, or working better than others, and that's what we would like to see today. So, since DHL is on the forefront of the physical flow of the supply chain, since DHL is managing the transportation and also the logistics activities of major organizations. So I would like to know from you, Mei, so what's going on with the COVID-19? What is the impact that you've seen at DHL currently?
Yeah, so let's start from the head, right? What is COVID? So I would like to share with you what's the latest, what should we do, and how can we help each other, and how can we from DHL help you and the audiences in the call. This is a snapshot of something that John Hopkins is sharing. It's free for all to use. So they created this very useful dashboard that a lot of news media is using as a reference point. I actually deferred the preparation of this call until yesterday because I know that things are moving very fast. So I just had a look at the latest, and there's already a 37,000 jump in terms of the numbers of affected cases, confirmed cases, from 435,000 to something like 472,000 today, like just this moment when I checked.
And we know, Maya, by the way, sorry to interrupt you. We know that this is only the people who have been tested. So in fact, it's you can
Absolutely.
expect more probably to have an additional a large percentage which is not part of those statistics.
Exactly. And I think countries are just starting to appreciate the magnitude of this pandemic, whereas just a month ago, I think many countries, particularly in Europe and US, were I would say, having a bit of a different mindset. With regards to this situation, and what is very important to note is, and I think the trigger for such a big panic is that you can see on the right side that deaths in Italy has way surpassed the deaths in Hubei, China. Already doubling, more than doubling the numbers. So that's just to set the context of the situation that we are facing now, right? And bringing back to the impact on businesses and economic and logistics trends. So I was doing some collection of different decks, because we've been giving our customers and doing webinars like this for the last let's say 3 months now. And one of the very recent deck, and this was from February. We were actually talking more about how impact on China is affecting global logistics. So we talked here about how stores and reduced demand in China is impacting global economy, given that they are such a significant consumer market these days. How it's going to impact global spending, and how U.S. U.S. concerns are impacting spending as well.
Yes.
And just within 4 weeks, right, all of this is obsolete. Right. So if I were to just update this exact article, this is probably the picture that we are seeing. So I think the long and short of it is everybody should just brace up and get ready for impact for the rest of the year, if not even longer.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so this is a very interesting perspective of things. We talk about omni-channel and we talk about the growth in e-commerce, and it's quite interesting to see how e-commerce is and consumer markets are driven, are shifting based on the products that is being consumed, right? Traditionally, online proportion of consumption in luxury skincare cosmetic is now overtaken by let's say infant food. All the big bubbles on the right hand side shows big year-on-year growth in the first days of Chinese Lunar New Year, and you can see that there are businesses that is really scrambling to prepare for the demand. Some are real, some are a bit of a panic buying of day-to-day essentials. If you are in countries like mine, oftentimes you see instantaneous grocery runouts of bread, toilet papers, and other essentials that you don't normally see.
Where is it, the toilet paper? Because it's everybody is very much interested in the toilet paper market now. So
exactly. So if you have invested in an Amazon, selling of toilet papers or masks, you'll be having a good win for right now.
Perfect.
Yeah. So we also saw, I don't know if you are following all these news, right? Amazon also announced hiring 100,000 employees to really cope with the demand on online buying in the States, even though they have also been significantly impacted through some of their own people affected by the virus, and also the lockdown. So one of the most significant challenges in the logistics sector is really all these different lockdowns. While a lot of countries have not specifically talked about closure of goods transportation, but because of the mandatory curfews, we are really seeing challenges in bringing our teams into the operations and our customers' operations to really continue operational viability. All over the world, we are following local authorities' recommendation. For example, in Singapore, we are in a split team setup. A lot of European countries, because of the curfew, we are all on home office, and one of the side effect is VPN doesn't work anymore because there's not enough bandwidth. In India, I have friends from SAP that said that if the entire SAP and the likes of technology companies are all homebound, then there's also literally no bandwidth in India, where we most recently saw the lockdown as well. So this actually is an extract. The fonts are quite small. I don't expect you to read every word of it, but I would just like to show you some of the things that we at DHL is doing for our customer. Some of the information you can also extract from a website that I will share with you, where we are giving some free consolidated information. Data is everywhere, right? News outlets are everywhere, and I'm getting pings on the, by the seconds on what's the latest on Corona situation all over the world. But what we do centrally is there's a corporate organized task force that is consolidating all these updates on a daily basis, and we are giving our customers and our logistics users across board some visibility in a consolidated manner. So that they can help, we can help channel some of the information across board. So this is a
That's very
snapshot. Yeah.
that's very important. In fact, we've seen a number of country lockdowns: Italy, Spain, France, Malaysia here, and in fact, governments are advising that workers for non-essential industry shouldn't be working. But for logistics and transportation, it's not very clear what is essential, what is the line between essential and non-essential. And I give you an example for a discussion I had with one of our clients here in Asia. So it's a mining company. So they manufacture in Malaysia. And so there's a ban currently a lockdown currently in Malaysia. So they close the borders, except for the goods, for the essential goods. However, the commodity that they produce for this company comes into the production of the gloves, which is essential for the current crisis, but also in thousands of different products, from cement to paint. So they need to get the right permit. They get the permit, but even with those permits, they struggle to pass the police checkpoints in Malaysia. So it seems to be still quite difficult to adjust to the situation, even when they can still continue to ensure, to guarantee their activity. There are some delays. So what can you do at DHL? I've seen Resilience 360. Can you talk a little bit more about what you guys are doing at DHL to support companies like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, there is a lot of information gaps, and also the authorities are making up these rules as they go along, right? No doubt that there will be delays, there will be uncertainties, a lot of clarification, and our operators on the ground are closely in touch with the customs authorities, the approval authorities, to really make this clear for our customers. There's no easy way to do this. But what you mentioned, what tools we are using within DHL is really a combination of really people, eyes on the ground to give that input, as well as a very orchestrated way of pulling this information to a central portal where I'm able to pull out some of this information to share with you today. So this is an example of something that is happening in the last 2 to 3 days, where India has suddenly decided that they will have a complete lockdown for 21 days, with effect actually of yesterday, and that's when I prepared this document. So latest in now is no longer latest. The latest is Thailand has decided to also create a lockdown with immediate effect, as well, of a similar nature. How do we get this information? I think, of course, there's many news channels that is offering this information in a very, how should I say? It's like a, it's like a lot of different news, different information coming through from different sources. And one of the tools that we use at DHL is a tool what we call the Resilience 360, where it is an online portal where we record not just COVID, but it's a tool that has existed since more than 5 years, where we try to collate all the different events that could impact logistics. And of course, now a big focus is on COVID situation, and this tool actually collects and provide our customers with live data to help them cope with all of these news outlets. So I think I will come to how the tool looks like
Okay.
in a moment. But if you look at this page, right, it's very wordy, but it gives very specific, information on the different mode of transportation. So if you look across and scan through this, we talk really about air freight and what are the different guidance for transportation via air, ocean, road, and an update on where customs stands. So a lot of it is around how, because of the people lockdown, movements are being also challenged. There's no truck drivers, there's no custom officers. It's really at a very bare minimum resource strength that needs to process a lot of products at the same time. So even if your goods are able to and qualified to move, they may not go through because of resource problems.
Yes, definitely. And I
Yeah.
think that's very important to cut through all the noise. People are being 1/3 of the humanity is confined at home, so it generates a lot of creativity, and we've seen a lot of fake news and a lot of rumors about a lot of information. So it's important for businesses to have the right insights for their business, so that they can take the right decisions.
Yes. So in fact, I'm just reading a bit of a fake news about how Singapore government has introduced the Dakon rate code in Singapore, which is not true. So Resilience 360 really triangulates different reliable news sources to really then provide our customers with information that they need to know. So what do we do short term and mid term, right? Like in short term, really looking at the ways you can help your people and your customers to stay safe, really providing them the right information and responsible information and protocol to keep them safe and inform them. So the first three points are really about that. And then really to then look at the supply chain and try to preempt where choke points might happen and actively look at alternative sources of movements. And Friedrich, you asked how is DHL helping our customers. One of the things that we are fortunate to have as a company is the breadth of services and modal options that we offer to our customers. So if air doesn't work, we go by sea. If sea doesn't work, we go by truck. And if truck doesn't work, one of the last remaining option is rail. And it seems like rail is still a service that's still happening.
Yes.
We are moving quite a lot of customers onto a rail option at the moment. But I don't know when it is going to be impacted and then stopped. But so far, it seems like rail is still an option if you are trying to move things from east to west. Yeah. So that's on that. And then really also preempting inventory levels, right? In such circumstances, all sorts of predictive analytics, you can throw it out of the window.
Yes.
Now it's really bringing your business acumen back into play and just talk about what are the essential products that will be next in line to have a search. And the moment this is elevated, then we would expect a search in different areas. And my hope is that they can curb this earlier rather than later. And the expectation is airlines would be having a lot of business once more, because all the flights that they have to waive rebooking fee, everybody will now have to go on vacation, and they will be one of the first ones to come back up once this COVID situation is resolved.
Yeah.
Mm.
In inventory is quite interesting, because the focus of most organization would be to reduce as much as possible, or to, let's say, optimize their inventory levels. But here, when we are undergoing such a crisis, we can't really keep the same objectives, business objectives, in terms of profitability, for example. We have to make sure that we protect, we secure the cash, the cash flow and the working capital. And then inventory somehow can't be an indicator where you have to minimize it as much as possible. That's quite the opposite. So under normal circumstances, you would optimize, reduce your inventory, but during such crisis, you need to understand, as you mentioned, what is the priority, and you should increase the inventory levels where the priority is.
Yeah. And for those who are in the manufacturing sector, we've also have seen some sectors being really flexible and be able to shift the way they operate to adapt to the new situations. I saw that Louis Vuitton has turned some of their manufacturing focus to create sanitizers, because
Yes.
they do have the materials and equipment to do so. So the more flexible you are, the more able you are to help. Really, now it's really more about helping us cope with this situation rather than profiting from it, right? It's really then to help us all to survive this pandemic.
Yes, no, that's very, very helpful for those companies who decided to reorganize their manufacturing plants and then produce what is needed, sanitizers, masks, etc. And also for those companies which can't actually produce masks and because they don't have the knowledge nor the equipment or the raw materials, what they decided to do is to focus on their the core of their products portfolio, so that they don't have to run all manufacturing lines, just to focus on the best sellers. So they would do that for the pasta. So there are some brands that I will not mention here. They would focus on a few of their SKUs. 3 of their hot sellers only, so that they can maximize the availability of those products and somehow don't overwhelm the rest of their production lines because of the variety of their products portfolio.
Yeah. Absolutely. So then longer term, we're really talking about having a fresh look at the global supply chain and understanding where our risk choke points within there, and see where you can create more robustness, right? I mean, just a month or two ago, we were talking about how companies are so reliant on China as a single source. And that's not new, right? That's also being accumulated from the trade wars that we've seen already in the past year. Companies are already starting to look at diversification.
Yes.
And I think this just brings another level of urgency to have companies really look at where they would need to create more resilience to balance against the absolutely cost efficiency that most businesses, particularly in the tech sector, has been focusing on in the last years. And the more resilient your supply chain is, the better it is to cope with such kind of scenarios.
Yes,
And,
but May, tell me something. This is not new. Managing the risk when you have a supplier which is failing, he goes bankrupt, or when you have a manufacturing plant which is not delivering, or when you have some flood here or there. This is not new. So what is happening?
I think yes, it's not new. What I do think is that the availability of technology today perhaps could help us find some opportunities to diversify your supply chain with a better cost control. You know, leveraging on smarter technologies, leveraging on 3D printing, for example, is still very limited, but companies going after smart manufacturing in a box are some of the things that comes to my mind. Perhaps not with immediate impact, but with a mind that long term, a more diversified and resilient supply chain is a lot more robust than a fully efficient one that is so vulnerable to shocks in the system. So I think there's no magic answer to this. It's not an easy decision whenever you are in a uptick position. You no doubt forget about history and try to optimize. But I think with technology, it enables us to do some of these things in a much more effective and cost controlled manner.
Yeah. So you were saying for the longer term, what else can we do?
I know that some companies are looking more tactically at in-market distribution channels rather than having a central huge warehouse location that is vulnerable to shock in country. The companies are potentially looking at more market-based warehousing solutions. That's one very immediate thought that comes to mind. Visibility is the other one, which I think a lot of the more mature companies are already on a very good track. I think these are good examples for others to follow. And with that, I want to introduce you then the tool that I've been talking about, Resilience 360, which is only one angle on how you can create visibility in your supply chain. There are many freight platforms, visibility platforms empowered by Internet of Things to give your supply chain visibility already today. The challenge we still have is the connectivity and the standardization of the different network capability and also device standards. But in time, I do expect that companies will get a better view of their supply chain and be able to combine different sources of information that like events, data on COVID, for example, or port congestions or other man-made or nature shocks to the system, and be able to make proactive mitigation effects. So if you go to the next page, this is a visual of how it works. It's an online portal. Resilience 360 was born when in those years we had the Japan tsunamis, we had the European ash clouds that really disrupted the supply chain, and the Innovation Center back then ideated this tool that could allow us to, through sources of data on the ground from our employee pool, 500,000 employees around the world, and also well-established sources of truths, to populate these almost live news feed on events that's happening around the world. So the little icons there shows the different classification of supply chain impacted events, and here it's this is really overwhelmed in the last few months on COVID-related incidents, but it really talks about flight impact, cancelled flights, worker strikes, port congestions, and so on and so forth, really offering our customers dynamic way, and also in a very tailored manner to zone up different event notification to the relevant employees. So DHL ourselves use this tool to get alerts so that we can in turn inform our employees on the ground on the risks that they might be facing. Some years back, I can't remember the exact situation, but there was gun shooting in Paris, wasn't that? And there was a use case on some of our employees that was traveling to Paris at that time, and was given live guidance on where they should avoid and where they should stay to avoid some of the potential risks and safety.
Yeah, if it was Paris, May, I guess it was another strike due to the yellow vest.
Yeah,
I'm sure it was one of those situations, and with a
absolutely.
lot of notifications and not to travel to
Yeah.
France and to avoid the yellow vest movement.
Yeah. So there are resources out there to help you get more visibility. John Hopkins is one that just checks the number of situations out there, but Resilience 360 is targeted on now there's a special intelligence center that dedicates resources on COVID. So if you would like to, you can go into this website, say here, to get regular updates on what's happening around the world that's impacting your supply chain because of COVID. And they are also giving out regular seminars from the experts to talk about how companies can handle such situations proactively.
So are we receiving, just to go back a bit on how the tool works? So is it real-time information for the events, the early warning, or is it once a day, twice a day? So what's the frequency of the updates?
So we say it's almost real time. So there's a few minutes of sync that always happens in the background. And for some incidents, we actually do need to take some validation work to confirm it. So we say it's near real time. So it's not once a day or twice a day. It's a continuous updating process.
Okay.
And now we are offering a free update on a regular basis directly into your email if you register. But for a small setup fee, the resilience team is giving a version of this online portal to any companies that would like to have a special focus on COVID update. For
Okay.
the next week. So you can go to the website to look for it, and if you can't find it, just ping me and I can point you to the right person.
Perfect. Can you push information if a company, for example, would like to integrate your information feed to their BI system, for example? Is it possible in terms of integration, or it's a standalone website for the time being, or portal?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking that question. So we very much focus on COVID in this call, so I didn't want to bore you with the capabilities of this tool. So there's a lot of different functionalities, including also supply watch, where you can proactively look for your supplier or any companies you would like to understand their risk levels on. You can also overlay your company's supply chain onto this portal where there is a risk of your specific supply chain, say in China, Wuhan. At this time of the day, you are expecting shipments and there's an event that could impact your supply chain. There's a notification that will be sent to a relevant team member of your supply chain to then have that visibility and create mitigation action. What you can do if you want is to also discuss with the technical experts on bringing this tool into your portal and to kind of look at ways to do that. But that would be a much more customized way of engagement, and I would really leave to the account experts to take you through how that could or could not be done.
Okay, perfect. One question, May. So according to your experience, what is the right approach for companies to adopt specifically to manage their supply chain risk? We've seen two different types of companies. The one will go into panic mode. They stop everything. What was important yesterday is not anymore today. They cut costs. They lay off. They contract themselves, and quite frankly, I can understand that if you are on the forefront in the hospitality industry or travel industry, the times are really tough at the moment. So there might not be a lot of options for them, but it's still in a reaction mode. And also on the other side, there are other companies where they take the opportunity to adjust to the situation and become quite creative and react a little bit differently in slightly more anticipation to limit the impact on their business. And most probably, the point here is not to make more money, but it's to limit the impact and still continue to be relevant in the business. So, according to you, what's the right approach for companies?
Yeah, I think the biggest hit businesses would be a lot of the SMEs where they do not necessarily have the ability to sustain such a situation because of cash flow challenges, and small and medium-sized companies tend to lack the resources and the breadth of scope to be able to handle such long-term crisis. I was just talking to a colleague in our freight forwarding business, and they are actually hit in one way, but on the other hand, we were able to consolidate volumes across our breadth of customers to charter planes to move some of the essential goods that wouldn't be possible if we were to be a much smaller player. So having a certain size and breadth of scope really then helps. To your question, I would just recall a story about a case during the SARS period when whilst it now on hindsight it doesn't look as serious as it seemed at that time, but that was the last pandemic that it wasn't even called a pandemic at that time. It was the last situation where at least in Asia it was considered to be a significant impact on all economies, and an Asian airline, I was told, decided to take a very hard action and took out of payroll for many of their pilots. But the uptick came, and that came fast and huge. They were unable to then refill the pilot resources fast enough, and ended up having quite a difficult year when there's the volume came back. So I think as businesses go into this, that there's a lot of thoughts to be made, a lot of scenario planning to be made around how to manage this risk in a responsible but with a bit of a long-term view on it. And we have no doubt that humanity can overcome this. It is a question on when and how. Experts say it's a 18-month outlook to get a possible vaccine. It could be wiped out after 1 week of all countries imposing stringent curfews on its citizens. But we know that it will come a day where we will start resuming to normality, and when that comes, right, companies need to be prepared for the uptick.
Yes,
we can already see from Wuhan situation where factories are slowly coming back online, but their challenge now is because they have shut things down so drastically and so quickly, which was absolutely the right thing to do. There is a challenge on bringing people back to the factories and start producing again. So companies just need to find their business continuity plans to recover that and not to jump into drastic actions.
Okay. The tool is critical. We have discussed with some clients, some customers, and they are struggling to have the visibility that Resilience 360 is offering, in fact. So they are just reacting. There's a new event, so they try to see what they can do to overcome this challenge. But having a full visibility on understanding whenever a customer based in a specific country is being locked down, so the demand will drop, for example, or there will be a a supplier which can't supply a part, a raw material, or a distribution center which is located in Italy, for example, and can't be operated because of lack of manpower. How this will affect the first delay, or affect, generally speaking, the supply chain and the business. Having a little bit of forecast is very difficult. So I think that the tool that you are presenting now is very useful in terms of gathering the different sources of information and putting it in a visible, visual, and easy to understand way. Now my question would be more on the how the internally an organization should be organized or structured to manage such a crisis. Once you have the information, when you don't have it, it's of course more challenging. But when you have it, so how, according to you, how the crisis can be managed internally in the company?
Yeah, so having this information is one thing. It's another thing having this information in a timely manner. So,
Yes.
so you asked the great question on how live is this information, and we have not quite gotten any customer feedback on this tool, but experience using this tool has shown that our customers with the tool have been able to react to incidents that affect geographies, even by hours, helps them to create mitigation factors. If you recall, there was that big explosion in, was it Tianjin, one of the China major ports, a few years back, and our customers reported that they were able to ship their materials out way before the government actually locked down the port.
Yes.
And avoided their goods stuck in their warehouses in that port. So the more intelligence you get and being able to act on it, right? Having that visibility
Yes.
by itself is not good enough. You need to be able to draw the right insights through analytics that is broadly available today. In fact, we are in DHL, we are investing in data science resources to really help bring all this information together and be able to provide relevant insights to make business decision is so key to the future of supply chain management.
Yes, definitely. What we usually suggest to our clients is to build a crisis SFM. So beyond COVID-19, it could be any crisis, in fact, that you may face in your career towards your supply chain. Is to build this crisis SFM. SFM stands for system for management. So it's how you can manage the crisis, what is the frequency of the meetings, who should be responsible of what. It's having also a control tower with centralized information, as you mentioned. So this would be typically the type of information that which will be reviewed, but also some business indicators on the supply, on the demand, and also making sure that you can take the right decisions based on those information. So you need to have, I would say, a framework that we call the SFM to manage the crisis and make use of this information.
Absolutely, yeah. I guess finally putting back on my innovation hat is looking into the future. I think with the available technologies, IoT, visibility tools, platforms, cloud solutions, we will get into a world where we are a lot more integrated. We are a lot more predictive. We can look at supply chain a lot more holistic and end to end, and having a dynamic view at your supply chain, and also being able to create different scenario plans based on shocks that you or change in your customer demand or supply strategies to really create that risk-adjusted and robust supply chain. So I would just like to end my sharing and presentation with a funny cartoon. We are in a bit of a major crisis right now. We are all very busy. But whilst we are working off, managing this crisis, let's not forget that we still need to look ahead and invest in future-proofing all of our supply chain.
Okay, perfect. Thanks a lot. So we are going to move to the Q&A session. So I have the first question, which is, let me read it. So having the data finally is often a big challenge to manage a crisis, such as knowing which production or supplies will impact which orders or customers. Any advice on how to manage this practically?
It depends on how much head start you have, right? So at least at DHL, we've started a journey of looking at our data across our businesses some years ago. It is a huge investment of technology, resources, and time. But many companies are looking at how data flow within their organization end to end, and investing in technology to start managing that and really digitalizing their processes and monetizing the data that they carry within their system. It's not an easy. There's not an easy answer to this question, but companies that are best in class out there, I think, have invested heavily into data management. And if you are starting from scratch, I would just say that start somewhere. And in some of our business, we are also just starting to look at microprocesses to digitize and organize, and break them into bite sizes so that you can at least start somewhere in areas which impact best your business.
Yeah, so somewhere is always better than nowhere, definitely. So I have a question on my side, Mei, which is DHL being a global organization. So how have you managed to work virtually with your colleagues? Do you have any tips or interesting measures that your company has taken that you'd like to share?
Painfully, to be really honest with you, I think we are all struggling worldwide. I mentioned VPN has shown that the bandwidth is limited. So that is still being a challenge. But I'm on Microsoft Teams, for example. So that has been. We have invested significantly in collaboration tools in the past year to enable us to still work on the cloud together as teams. And on the lighter side of things, our team members are being creative now to introduce virtual team lunches, virtual social events. Making use of all the channels that we can think of to help us still stay connected and to stay safe.
Okay. We have a question here. We only remember the pain when the next crisis arrives and forget it soon after it is over, which leaves many unprepared for an increasingly unpredictable world. So what should companies do during this lull to improve their business model and skills to prepare for an eventual recovery? Recovery is a big topic, by the way, because we are all focusing on the current crisis, but there will be a recovery. China is started to recover slowly. So we also need to get prepared for the recovery. So I'll leave it to you, Mei.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the business continuity plans are for, right? So that continues to evolve with the business continuity plans. We then can kind of fish it out at times of crisis and at least know what to do for the first instant, and that helps calm people down. So knowing that the BCP exists, and continuously re-looking at that after every crisis to understand where we need to do things differently, invest in assets to help with this, and tools that would go a long way for you. I think, I don't know, like my personal view, the fact that this is a worldwide crisis and not a specific region or sector crisis really resets all of us to the same level in a way.
Yeah.
Right. So I just want to also take a more optimistic view that, yes, everyone is bracing and experiencing the same level of hit. So hopefully, in the new year, or ideally in the next quarter, we will all be facing the same kind of uptick.
Yes, I think Mei, your dog would like to add some comments in the background.
Absolutely, and this is also something that we are dealing with, right? So in all conference calls, I have my dog talking, my colleagues' children having conversations as well in the conference call. This is just a new reality that we are dealing with. Some businesses are actually being recognized for it, right? So we are using this tool, Friedrich, you are using, but Zoom has been highly recommended to me because of its ease of use. So I think there will be winners and some losers here, but I think we will all come out of this stronger.
Okay, perfect.
I'm going to put myself on mute because she wants to talk to me now.
So can you elaborate? I have another question. Can you elaborate on the COVID-19 SFM that you mentioned? So while you're talking to your dog, I think I can give some explanation of what is the SFM. So I have prepared a few slides and that you may want to see. So this is a standard framework to manage the crisis. So typically you would find what Mei showed previously, which is the feed, not necessarily real time, but at least on a daily basis, what is the situation in terms of country, in terms of your factories, the distribution centers, but also some of your suppliers. Also the status that you would have in terms of employee health, the percentage of people being in home office, the percentage of absenteeism, and also the number of employees affected. And also on the supply continuity, you would have the impact or how the situation, the COVID-19 is impacting your current supply chain in terms of manufacturing plants, in terms of lanes, in terms of consolidation hubs, and the percentage that you are losing in terms of capacity, and also in terms of critical customers. So of course you can't monitor everything, so you have to follow 80-20 rule here, which is to focus on the main suppliers, on the main consolidation hubs, and also on the main critical customers. And that you will see here, in fact, on the demand continuity, where you will see the distribution of your customers by order of importance and their status, whether they are in a critical situation, so they are not buying at all, or yellow, which is the demand has dropped, and there are delays, and also whether there's no impact for the time being. And you will also have more details. So this would be more the CEO helicopter view, where you will have in one dashboard all the key information, but you will also have all the details. For example, for the employee health, you will have it by your locations, manufacturing plants, consolidation hubs, for example. So you'll have the map for the different locations and whether they are affected. So we use a color code because it's easier to follow and to track rather than having figures. Rather than having figures, which is quite first difficult to generate, but also to track. So you have a color code, which is anything which is below 25% of disturbance, that's okay. Anything which is between 25 and 50% of capacity loss, that's an issue. So this would be in yellow, and beyond in green, in red, sorry, it would be no capacity or critical situation. And this you have to take action. And then this would be on the demand perspective. And here, typically, you would have, so not the normal, usual SNOP or forecast where you will see the demand for the next 12 months. But here you will be focusing on the next 15 days. And in red, you will have the situation where the demand exceeds the actual capacity. And by capacity, I mean the plant, but also the manufacturing plant, the suppliers, or the transportation. And then, of course, you can have the details per customer, which is important, the top customers, of course, and the details also on the supply side, where you will have your key critical tier 2 suppliers, your key critical tier 1 suppliers, your manufacturing plants, the consolidation hubs, and the critical customers. That's, of course, important at the action plan, which is how are you going to solve the situation, who is in charge, when it should be done, and where, whether it's at the consolidation hubs, for the manufacturing plants, or the suppliers. So that's very important to have this SFM system for management, where we can have, in fact, a framework where you don't focus on generating reports or the information, but really on taking decisions and having the visibility. So we have another question, and I think this would be for you, Mei. So when do you think that the COVID-19 will end up? Or maybe your dog might answer this question.
Well, if I know, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you, working for DHL. So I think it's as good as anything. From the looks of it, I don't think much will happen over the next 3 months in terms of reactivating the lockdowns that the governments have introduced. At least in Singapore, the Asian countries are one of the first to hit. And at least in Singapore, I'm looking at more and more reduced interaction, more social distancing that will affect our work flow more so than less. So I think it's at least 3 to 6 months outlook of similar situation.
Okay, so thanks a lot. We are reaching our time limit. So I'd like to thank our host, our guest, Mei Pang from DHL, for your insight during our series. And I would like also to invite the audience to continue the discussion on social media, whether on our LinkedIn page, B2G Consulting, but whoever would like to have more information, you can contact me directly or myself. And also we are preparing a new masterclass on the crisis management soon, mid of April. So if you want to participate, you are more than welcome. Thanks a lot, Mei.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Bye.